Yeah, welcome back to the channel, folks. This is part 2 of the GRC planters update, and you're here with the big fella. So guys, I was originally only going to make one part of this, and I had so much footage that was still relevant, I just couldn't get rid of all the stuff that had to be included, so I had to make 2 parts. So the end of part 1 was kind of leading you into what was going to happen next with the planters, because I had kind of a grand plan for the whole thing, but wasn't quite sure how to execute it. So anyway, enough gas bagging for now. Let's get back into the video. So taking some quick measurements from the new planters that I've got, it works out to something like about 83,000 cubic centimeters of space inside, or just over 5,000 cubic inches. Where's that come from? Oh, imperials. So now we've got a fair bit of space to play with inside these new planters, and what we're going to do is try and make an idealized version of what I had before with the smaller ones, and kind of bring the ideas of both the smaller pots and the planters I've got right now together into a more realized version, and something that is, well, has been on my mind for quite a while, and something that I wanted to kind of bring to life. So getting these planters developed into frog hotels has kind of taken quite a bit longer than what I thought it would, because of all the unique problems that have arisen because of, you know, making something that is a complete unknown. You're trying to fuse one format of frog hotels into another, and yeah, it doesn't always work the way you think it will. So it involved a bit of bringing together of unique concepts and creative thinking, and trying to jump out of the corner that I painted myself into. But firstly, what I wanted to do is to put back onto you guys, the viewers. What would you do if you had this much space to use for a frog hotel, a brand new planter, and you wanted to actually utilize it for your own purpose for the frogs, and you had all that space to play with? So go ahead, drop a comment below and just tell me what you think you would do. What would be your ideal design, bearing in mind you had no budget, no creative limitations whatsoever, just working within the confines of that planter. So tell me what you would use and how you'd go about it. I'll be interested to see your responses. Alright folks, so I've had a little bit of time to have a bit of a rethink about how this is all going to go, and I'm trying to avoid problems along the way. So what I'm going to do now is to get a piece of polycarbonate to combine the idea of what I did before in the little pots, and make kind of a standoff and a platform for the plant and for the pipes to actually go through. So what we're going to do is use the remains of some of these offcuts, which is basically threaded rods, and the 16mm nuts that actually go on them, which I had left over from my bird feeder installation, which was done a few years ago. Basically what happened was some birds decided to make a bit of a ruckus and use the feeders as kind of playthings. The footage I've got for you, well, it kind of shows you them having a good old time, and they just had no respect for the fact that there was feed in there, and they just wanted to kind of play around on it. It was their own little gym. So what I did was to kind of obliterate that type of idea altogether, made some holes in the arms of the bird feeders, and put through some threaded rods and some nuts into place, and basically made them a static fixture. And these offcuts and the nuts from them are what are left over from a couple of the arms. So in the process of getting these bits and pieces from Bunnings, I've got a TCT hole saw with one tooth. But we've got some galvanised nuts here, M16, and they come in a pack of 20. So looking at this polycarbonate sheet, we've got a few of them up here in stock. One up top which is 8mm, but the ones underneath it are 10mm. So I've got to go find out if there's another one that is 8mm, so I can finish the job. So I've had to come down to a different Bunnings a little bit further down the road, but we've got the other sheet, again 8mm. Now I can put them all together, and might even see about getting a proper sized hole saw for those threaded rods. Alright guys, so as you saw before, I actually got both of the pieces of polycarbonate. What I did get and didn't get very much footage of was this galvanized threaded rod. So 1.2 meters, that will offset these already cut pieces, which I already had before, which I showed you. And back here, we've got the other bits and pieces that we've got. So we've got the 16mm hole saw, which will basically make out the holes for the threaded rod. We've got the galvanized nuts, which will go onto the ends of the threaded rod after it goes through the polycarbonate, and the tungsten carbide tipped hole saw, which will be the weapon of choice for the other planter box. So when that comes to getting done, we'll be using that, and I'll try to include some footage with that as well. So that's where we're at, and we're gonna catch up on this tomorrow sometime. What I've done is I've measured and marked out the 6 inches that I need to make the appropriate cut for the polycarbonate to be placed above those bricks. So here is the bricks and everything ready to go. So what I've done is importantly put nuts on either end of this bit of offcut. So what I do, if I cut it out and make it to size, the nuts will be able to spin off and basically rethread anywhere that's got a bit of a burr on it, which would normally not allow for the nuts to go back on. So that's where we're coming from right now. So I'm going to get to cut up some offcuts, see if I can get them the right size, and then we'll get to work on the polycarbonate. And so down here is our first standoff completed. You can see the comparison size of what I've got to work with and what I need to cut out for future ones. So the gap that's there right now between those top and bottom nuts is the approximation of the polycarbonate and where it's going to sit and how it's going to look. It well and truly clears the bricks. What we're going to do is basically get the holes into the polycarbonate and get the hole saw going for the pipes as well. So let's move on to that. So you might be wondering, how thick is 8mm polycarbonate? Well, it's about 5/16 of an inch for our American friends. She is a fairly thick bit of kit, so it's going to take a little bit of drilling to get through, but more critically it's going to be quite a stable platform for everything to sit onto. It'll hold the pipes in place better than the standard acrylic that I had before. So this part here is measured at 36 centimeters by 36. Fingerprints and all. That's what happens when you take the protective stuff off it. But unlike last time, where I forgot to take the protective film off, I lost all the measurements with the acrylic, and that was a lesson learned. So everything's been marked out here, and we're going to take it over to the planter and see how it all sits. So it's a little hard to see, but with these lines that I've marked out, that is our 36 centimeter cutoff line. You can kind of imagine from here how it'll sit specced up, as it'll just kind of drop in after that 4 centimeters is cut off there. Alright folks, so the jigsaw wasn't doing the job. It was binding up and making the work kind of close in on itself when it melted. And so I went to extreme measures. Got our old friend the angle grinder out, and well, the results kind of speak for himself. I was worried about the job heating up, and that's kind of what it does. It was my only out really, and you can see what kind of a job this did on the polycarbonate. This is just an absolute crime scene. So I've had to take off the edges of the work. Even this corner here still needs to be straightened out. But who would have thought these humble cable tie cutters could have added de-dagging polycarbonate to their repertoire? Well, there you go. So now, just for full transparency and clarity, I've actually cut off this other side. I've only done it with the angle grinder, which was the easiest tool for the job, although it made quite a mess, and a nice fluid mess, of the side that was cut off. Now we've got a 36 by 36 polycarbonate sheet, and we're ready to get some hole saw stuff done.
I'll get the lubricant.
There's no time for lubricant.
There's always time for lubricant!
So the next job is to obviously make some holes here and here for the other standoffs, and then we're going to make some pipe holes and trial fit it inside the planter. Okay, now here it is. We've got the first one done. The first 4 legs or standoffs actually attached to the polycarbonate and ready to go in. So now we're going to drill some holes for the pipes, which are down here, and everything's just going to sit in there nice and snugly, hopefully. Okay guys, so next is a little photo montage of how everything's kind of come together and how all the holes were made, how I got this kind of love of symmetry. Down here is the trial fit into the planter, and as you can see, it actually works kind of well. So it's kind of as I designed it. I'm just going to get a quick weight. So what we're going to weigh is the planter, the substrate at the bottom, bricks, nuts and bolts, polycarbonate, and the weight of the pipes. So that's just about everything. So before, if you recall, I actually used the luggage scales with the hook on them. This time we're going to be using the standard bathroom scales. So let's have a look. And we're at around about 19 kilos all in, but it doesn't really feel like it's nearly 20 kilos at Frog Hotel without the rocks and the water. The next step is to actually dismantle this, take out the polycarbonate, and what we're going to do is to make a replica, like a bit of a template. I've clamped up the bits of polycarbonate together, so that means they're flush on one side and flush on the other side as well. So the sides that aren't going to be used are of course going to be cut. So I've marked out bits of the top there, and I've also marked out all the holes that have been here. Now where the genius comes in, I've got this 25mm hole saw here, so what I've done is basically put it inside and scratched out where the hole is going to be. That could be a little bit flawed in one respect because you need the pilot hole to go through the middle. Now I've still got to mark out the middles. So it's good in one way because you're going to know where the holes are, but bad in another because you don't know if they're going to be centric or not because the pilot has to go through first. So yeah, that's how I'm going to go forward from here. Finally, it's all been cut up and ready to assemble. So basically what we got here is a lot of the supports that were being used to hold the thing upright while I cut, all the feet that are ready to go on, even some of the plugs that I took out from doing the hole sawing. Even the mess wasn't all that big to sweep up, except I've still got a lot to clean up here. So basically that's as far as I've gotten right now. It's been a very busy couple of days, so I'm going to pick this up tomorrow, put all the stuff together like a big jigsaw puzzle, get it all sorted out, assembled, and see how it all fits together. So while I'd made a fair bit of progress on the first planter for the new Frog Hotels, I started on the second while not having a clear vision on how I was going to complete the first. Now this might seem foolhardy, but I was racking the old grey matter trying to find ways to separate the top part of the hotel from the polycarbonate platform and whatever sat underneath. I knew the thought process was too narrow and aligned with using some form of sheeting to keep the frogs safe and out of the area below the platform. Draping some polyethylene sheeting like Visqueen down the insides of the planter walls, it seemed like a fairly good idea when you use it with 3M VHB or very high bond. So according to a Google search, or basically what AI says about 3M VHB, it can be used underwater. So you can take that at face value. In the old pots from the first Frog Hotels, this wasn't an issue because the pipes were jammed in with small rocks as well as being arranged with the pipe keepers that I made out of Perspex. The frogs couldn't get below the rock base, but now with the new planters being their home, water was above the platform instead and only a small layer of rocks. And at this point in the build, it felt like ages that I was stuck at the point where I didn't know what to do next. Okay guys, so after a little bit of back and forth and a lot of head scratching and trying to figure out what the hell to do with this, I've finally come up with something that I think might actually work. Now, a bit of a brainwave, how about split tubing, or convoluted ducting is what they call it. So what I'm going to do is actually run this tube around the outside, kind of almost touching the inside wall here, but still attached top and bottom of the polycarbonate, and that should work. So I'm thinking probably about 36mm, but it needs to be big enough to actually make that gap kind of disappear. Now the best thing about this is it is removable and you can reattach it. That is the way forward right now, so I'm hoping that'll work. I did a bit of research on cutting polycarbonate. The only stuff I could find was anything between 1mm and 3mm thick. Even though you would probably use either a jigsaw or a circular saw, I only have a jigsaw here right now, which I've used before, and questionable results, but it did the job. But what I used this time around was an angle grinder, and I think the circular saw probably would have done the same type of job, which is kind of a little bit of a hack job around the edges. Problem was the thickness of the polycarbonate, and it was going to make a bit of a mess anyway because of the high heat. Even though you probably would have gone through the job a little bit quicker with a circular saw, the angle grinder kind of went through it as quickly as possible, but still created that kind of a mess. And just a quick word on the end of these bolts here. If anyone was concerned the steel that had been cut hadn't been treated, well, over here we've got some zinc galv, and that will be enough to treat the ends of the bolts. As far as I know, this stuff will not deteriorate in fresh water. It has a little bit of an issue with salt water, but this will be fine just for this application. So we'll just give these a quick lick over, and there we go. That's got the coverage needed, so we're going to take these out when they've cured. Here on the first lot, what I've done is zinc coated the tops of them and put them back as they were. And yes, I did do both sides. Underneath, they are still all protected.
Three weeks later.
I tried just about everywhere I could find locally, and they'd never actually carried this stuff. So this is 42.5mm outside diameter and about 36 inside. So this stuff I probably should have gone to eBay in the first place, because this is where I found it. Either way, it would have taken about the same time as it would have been able to be collected locally, but it doesn't matter. I've got it now. So what I'm going to do is take an offcut like this and try running a groove through here and getting this split tubing to attach either side of it. And it's going to kind of line the outside where this this little template is here. Basically, I took a bit of cardboard roll. I'll take this out. So now we're going to get a groove going around the inside here and underneath as well, so I can actually get it gripping onto both sides, and hopefully that will eliminate the gap in between the polycarbonate support and the inside wall of the planter. That's the hope anyway, so let's see how we go. Okay folks, so what you're seeing here is, the long and the short of it is that this proof of concept actually works. Split the corrugated tubing apart and get it over snugly over this scrap bit of polycarbonate here. And what I've done is to just kind of make a crack or a groove top and bottom, just to make sure it actually positively locks inside there. And this is kind of the only real solution I can find for it that isn't going to be permanent. Now, if it came down to it, I could actually go with, say, maybe Celastic or something like that if I wasn't going to remove it again, but this is designed to be serviced, so this is going to be how it's going to sit. So this is just the proof of concept, kind of how it works, and our old friend the Dremel actually come in very handy for this one. So now that actually works and we've got a workable prototype, we will move on to the main event, making a slot about 20mm inside on top and underneath the polycarbonate, and putting the corrugated tubing on top of that. So this corrugated split tubing here, what it actually looks like is something that you'd pull out of your pool, or maybe attached to a pool cleaner of some sort. It's not that different. Only thing is, it's got a split going down one axis. It wants to roll up. It wants to kind of go against the grain. It doesn't want to actually go straight. I thought I was going to be able to make some fairly tight radiuses with this stuff, but it doesn't want to crush very well. So it's not going to go around one full lap is what I thought it was going to do, but it's not going to. So what we're going to do instead is to cut it out into quarters. So what we're going to do is have one line on each side. So that's how it's going to work. How it's all going to mate up, I'm not sure yet. That's going to come down to the little minutiae of it, but that is the design, and that's how we're going to go through it. Okay folks, so we're coming to the final stages of the interior of this build, and what I wanted to do is actually get a spot where I can mount the light, or at least the pole for the light. And I was looking around and I thought, well, yeah, you can kind of put it anywhere you really wanted to put it, but I've already made all the holes. It looks like a pincushion as it is. But what I wanted to do now is actually find somewhere that would be good enough to sit on one of the edges or one of the corners to actually locate the light. And what I come up with was my old friend 15mm piece of PVC, but where is it going to sit? So I thought, well, maybe it can sit here, but how's it going to stay there? What I wanted to do was see what solutions I could come up with to make it sit there that's going to be kind of semi-permanent, being good enough to actually sit there underwater and be removable if needed, so I can actually pop it off like that. So I came up with a solution I think will work. So getting the light stalks for these lights to get mounted properly on here, I actually had an idea of using a bit of cut off old 6-foot stake and cutting it in zinc gal and using that as the locating point for the light stalk. But I had another idea, and this is actually a little bit more inspired. These are from the original lights that I had on the old Frog hotels, which I didn't end up using because the stalks are actually too short. But these are designed to go into the ground. Now, we're obviously not doing that. So what I'm going to do instead is actually put them up like this and use them as a kind of a locator stalk like that. Kind of like a dowel, but not really. So we're going to use that and use a bit of the aquarium silicone and get them located in place. And that would actually be a very elegant and neat solution. So now I've got a dob of silicone sitting down there in the corner. I'm just going to move this over here a little bit and put that in place. What we're going to do now is get the light stalk to actually sit on top of that, just to make sure it's actually sitting in the right place. And there we go. We have everything kind of sitting in place, sitting there on the aquarium sealant, which is being held on by some multi-grips, kept in balance nicely. It's not actually permanent right there right now, but it will be once it's actually gone off. So I can just kind of push this right down home and have the light sitting on top, and it's all good. So we're just going to let that sit there and dry overnight. So this is it, how it sits right now, with the omission of the water pump and the fountain, which is going to go in that vacant spot on the brick there. But there's about 5 kilos of rock that's been put on top of the polycarbonate, and that's kind of filling in most of the gaps around where that tubing is at the back there and around the sides. Besides a bit of water and that pump and the fountain, I think we're just about ready to go, so let's take it outside. So even though this is a lighter construction than the old pottery planters, this is still got a bit of heft to it. I mean, once you've got it all assembled, it's still probably somewhere around the 35-40 kilo mark. It's not really easy to move around, which is why I've got a dolly thing moving it around. Work smarter, not harder, folks, and use some assistance where you can. Let's get this around to the other side of the house. So now it's out here where it's actually going to live. Final point will be on top of these 2 bricks, which has got to be evenly spaced out to carry the load. Asides the addition of some more rock to go on top of the stuff that's already there, because these pipes, they're a little bit wiggly, but they're still fairly stable compared to what they are right now on the other planters. So it's very possible I can put in maybe another layer, which is another 5 kilos of rock from one of the other planters here, and that'll probably stabilize things up a little bit to kind of make sure that the pipes don't get too much wiggle. Okay folks, so it is another day, and we're going to continue with our ethos of working smarter, not harder here. So what we're going to do is, before we fill this up with water and start transplanting frogs, we are going to move the frog hotel that is to be onto these bricks and shift them apart. And before we do that, we're going to still move all the cords and clean up everything that has kind of been there for the last 6 or 8 months or whatever. It's just kind of piled up there. So we're going to get all that stuff moved out the way and have a nice tidy clean area, and then after that we're going to finally get this stuff cleaned up on the path, because it's starting to look black because of all the rain. See how it all works out. Now I know that seemed fairly easy to put into place, but we're not done yet. We've still got to fill up the rest of the rocks into here, because I've only ever put up just enough to keep the pipes stable, and now we're going to put in the rest to kind of stop them moving about, as much as I explained before. What I've done here is to just use a little bit more of those rocks that were left over and place them in around those pipes between the brick in the middle and the pipes, just to kind of stop them from having as much lateral movement as they had before. So they still got movement, but just not quite as much. So what we're going to do now is put some water in there and do a bit of a sanity check with the tap at the front, make sure everything's all good. Perfect. Great. Alright, so that's about as high as we want to go. That's going to saturate the bottom of the plant, and it's going to put about enough water in there for the pump for the fountain. So that's kind of what we want to do right now, but it's still a bit disconcerting seeing all those bubbles coming up, because that's still the split tubing getting rid of the air. I'm pretty sure it'll get rid of it fairly soon, but still no less worrying than seeing it the first time. You think, okay, well, is it supposed to be doing that? Because it's something you're not really used to. So I was just moving the pump and stuff out of the way to get this stuff ready to be dismantled, and I found a Klingon sitting down the bottom here of this pipe. I was just wondering what he's doing there instead of in the pipe. It's a bit weird, but as you can see, that's kind of how they rest during brumation. That's kind of about 95% of their body's sitting in the water, including their eyes. It's just their nose is above the water just to get the air. So that's kind of how they live. When they wake up, which is going to be by brute force in a minute, they're awake and they kind of don't really want to go back to sleep again. It's just the change of weather that puts them into this brumation cycle. Well, I've taken a look down the pipes and I can see at least 5 of them. They're going to all need to be moved over, and what we're going to do first is clean hands, or wet hands, or preferably gloves. Now I don't have gloves on me at the moment, so I'm just going to handle these guys with wet hands to move them all over. So that's the next job. Now I've still got wet and slippery hands, but there's the first one rescued. He's going to try and find his way around the place now. He's going to jump probably back into the water. Go on, mate. It's a little way down there. There he goes. Now whether he goes back into a pipe or not, that's another matter, so I'm just going to leave him be. So as you can see, I've removed the brick from this remaining terracotta frog hotel, and I've got the water in there being siphoned out by the tube. That will make things a lot easier to move around, because you've got about half the weight of the hotel to move around. So work smarter, not harder. So now I have started to empty the first layer of rocks. As much as I've actually loosened off the algae that was there, there's still a lot being pulled out by these rocks. As you can see, they're mostly green. While the water came out clean, or relatively clean, it was just the stuff that was on the top that came out pretty well. This stuff down here is still being held onto by the rocks. So what we're going to do now is finish taking out all these rocks here and the frogs from the pipes, but then give the rocks a thorough clean over. So here's our first pipe that's just come loose, and as you can see, it's still got a fair bit of water and rock to move out of there. One of them's already come out through the bottom. It's right down the bottom there, and you can see he was very groggy and decided to go over here somewhere down this pipe. So yeah, we're just going to leave him be, because he was kind of asleep and didn't want to be moved. And here's the second one that just came out of the pipe at the bottom, and we're just going to move him over because he looks like he's a little bit distressed. He doesn't like being woken up. This is a bit odd, really, because it's a very warm day and they're usually up and about by now. And there is the last one out of the pipe, and he's just getting settled in his new pipe. So now I've removed all the pipes from our old planter, and here's the last 3 of our friends. Looking very groggy, aren't you, mate? Come on. There you go, buddy. So it's now the end of another very short day here. Don't forget, it's still winter here in Australia. All the stuff that I've actually had to get out of these frog hotels and wash off and clean and get ready to put back into the new ones, it leads to a lot of detritus, and you're going to smell a lot of algae, a lot of organic frog matter like skin and God knows what. So yeah, just be prepared for that, because you're going to stink. Best thing to do is probably wear gloves. If you don't have any, then yeah, make sure to wash your hands very, very well afterwards. And we'll get on with this tomorrow, I believe, if the weather stays good.
Later.
And it was at this point that the build took another detour. So this is what happens when the words good enough aren't in your ethos. When you can't quite get perfection, but the means to do better and the intent to carry it out are there, knowing that if I didn't do it, it would be doing a disservice to not only myself, but also to the viewers. So the effort of all of this is to satisfy the question, if you could do it all over again, how would you do it? Alright, so before we tie a big fat bow around this whole project and finish it off, I just wanted to make it clear that the whole premise of these pipes sitting in here, I wasn't really happy about them kind of moving around. Well, I think I told myself once or twice I wasn't going to go this far with the project, but I really don't think I'll be doing myself or the project enough justice without actually getting something like this done. So what we got here is a 64 and a 70mm tungsten carbide tipped hole saw and a few 3-hole house bricks. So what we're going to do is try cutting through the bricks with these. I'm only going to be scoring them probably a few millimeters down, but enough to what would conventionally bugger one of the standard hole saws. So the next job will be to cut up some of these bricks and to make some feet out of them and get some grooves scored in around the outside of the holes. We're going to do this on this particular planter for this frog hotel, but I haven't done it on the other one, which I've already filled up. I don't want to have to drain that one out and start all over again, so I'm going to do that the next time around. What we're going to do is have this one done properly, and the other one is kind of just going to float around for now and just see how we go. Now, before we get to cutting these to size and getting to put them inside the planter, what I wanted to do first is to get an approximation of where to cut around these holes, because they are very similarly sized. You don't really have that much room to cut. I mean, the holes are just a little bit bigger than what I thought they were going to be for standard bricks. But anyway, what I should be able to do is to cut kind of on the halfway line of these bricks. So what I want to do is kind of go down and maybe about 5mm and get the hole saw to make a bit of a step into the brick so the pipes can actually lock into place. That's kind of the plan. We'll see if it actually works or not. I've never tried anything like this before, so this is all new to me. So what we're going to do is kind of learn about this together. Now, just quickly marking out the holes for where these pipes are going to sit in the brick. What I wanted to do was find out where exactly they were going to sit. Problem is the pipes are not transparent, so you kind of have to look through the pipe from the top and kind of get a gauge where it is, then mark it out around the outside. So those little black things there, as you can see, it's a little bit close to the edge. So now here's the remains of the coring of the bricks, just trying to get the seating right for the pipes to sit in the brick. It's very dirty and dusty. I didn't want to take you through the whole process of that. So what I've done is included a little clip at the beginning. So over here, what we have is the coring of these bricks, and they're a little not quite centric, but the smaller ones down here, when you put these in here, they're a little bit oversized. Now, I'm not too concerned about that because a little bit of slop is fine, as long as it manages to hold the pipe in place. And that's what it's going to do. The larger ones had a bit of an unintended side effect. When you're going to put these in here, those center parts there actually give it a more of a lock type of thing. So I don't really want to take out the cores. When you remove it from there, you can see that little nub in the middle there is actually not quite centric, but it doesn't really need to be, but it holds it in there pretty damn well. So around the outside, it's actually pretty good. So I could either take the cores out or not, but I kind of don't really want to because it provides a better lock. Now, if that proves to be something that is going to be hindering the final product, then what I'll do is I'll take out the cores, leave them something like this down here. So they actually turned out pretty well. What I was really surprised about was they cored very, very nicely. I was expecting the bricks to fail. What I had to do earlier was get a diamond bit on an angle grinder and cut them around the outside and just go hammer and chisel on them. But that's actually turned out quite nicely. So what we're going to do later on is to do the same thing with the other planter and get the pipes sorted out with the little brick bases. This will be done sometime towards summer. So what I want to do is actually get one of these planters totally finished, and the other one I can kind of modify at a later date because I really don't want to upset the frogs anymore. So what we're going to do is take these, put these in here and replace those bricks. So we're going to have the pipe sitting in there like that. That should give us a nice firm base. So that's how we've managed to settle on this, and we've got two of the pipes anyway, sitting in there nice and comfortably. Much less slop, much less movement, especially there, than what we used to have. Down here, allocations for the pipes, and that's exactly how they're going to sit. So that is it. So what we're going to do is put this back in and replace the other bricks. And what I just realised is the frogs have now got Wi-Fi. They've got the little antenna there. Now the only real drawback about this is taking out the bricks to actually get them oriented the right way. That takes a little bit of fiddling. So take out most of the stones, just kind of get everything sorted out, put them in the right way as per how they sit here, because that is your template, that's your guide as to how the pipes are going to sit. And the bricks are mutable, you can kind of move them around, and that's what I've had to do, and they will sit there nicely. So what I'm going to do is recore the two 50mm pipe feet, and what we're going to do is give them a little bit more lock, so hopefully the bricks will not shatter. And now what you're seeing is the final layout for all the bricks and how they're going to sit with the pipes, and everything upright, nice and straight, and more importantly, mostly free of movement. So that's how we're going to roll. So what I'm going to do now is put the rest of the rocks back in after the bricks have been sorted out, because that's the only real caveat with this, is the pipes and the polycarbonate kind of dictate where the bricks have to be placed, because now you've got static fixtures for the pipes, and basically you have to kind of play ball with how the bricks want to sit. So that's how they're going to sit. If you ever really wanted to know what 2 years and one really strong summer worth of rain would actually do to a concrete, here's what I'm standing on now. And there is the part that I've just done. That's a really, really hard line there. And I've got more to do up there. Alright, so now the second one is fully assembled. We've got the light holder and the light in place as well. So now we're going to put some water in and try and make it similar to what this one is right now, which has been sitting here for probably about a week. Basically the frogs have been in here and they're still fairly happy in there. You won't be able to see them, but they are there. So now all that's left to do is to fill it up and make sure it all works well and doesn't leak anywhere. And we'll put the plant in, and yeah, work job done. And now it's time for another sanity check. We just filled up the water in this one. So we've still got pockets of air, the little air bubbles coming out through the split tubing that's around the sides, kind of like the first one. So now what we do is turn this one on. Beautiful. Great job, working a treat. Okay, now one thing you will notice with these ones is they're sitting slightly shorter in the planter than the other ones. These ones haven't had the bricks cored out and the pipes sitting inside them, and the other ones have. So now this one is the original one, and that still needs to be modified to suit, because I didn't allow enough time for it. But now this one, you can't really see the joins of the pipes when you get down to the same level. And there we are all finished there as far as this goes, all the planters and the plants. What's left to do now is to finish up with the bin hotel here, kind of do a little bit of a minor restructure on that one, kind of get the sand out of there and find another way to hold the pipes in place, because they just want to lean over right now. But on this side we need to core the bricks as far as stability goes, so we need to get the pipes down to the same height and about as stable as the ones over here. So now we're just going to finish up with a brief nighttime montage and probably get the pumps going and yeah, sell the shot. And this is the same day at just past the evening, and about 7 PM, and this is what I mean. Sometimes these guys come up for whatever reason, and it's a warmish day, and they come up, and later on they'll just disappear again, like they never come out at all. So while there's not actually any frogs in this hotel right now, they're all kind of spread out between these two hotels. And they will come over probably in a couple of months' time, maybe even sooner. It depends on when they want to come over. But it is ready for them. It'll do exactly the same job as the other hotels, only just a little bit better. More functional, better to look at, but like I said before, the frogs won't care. They'll just see it as home. Either they want to live here or they don't. That's up to them. But I guarantee they will come here temporarily and then go back to wherever they came from. So that's just the nature of frogs, that's how they are. So if you watched all the way through, guys, congratulations. Something I wasn't planning on doing was making 2 parts of this. As I said before, this is a deep dive type of project. I tried to trim bits, but had to keep all the relevant build info into the final cut. I tried to minimize quite a bit, but it just kept on going. So like I said earlier on, this took way longer than expected because of several design hiccups and kind of feeling my way through it as I was going. Getting the stuff together for assembly took a lot longer than was planned. So now I will be revisiting the first Frog Hotel that was renovated and cutting those bricks to proper size so I can get the pipes actually seated down into the bricks. But like I said earlier, it's brumation time for the frogs right now. I was very reluctant to move them over at all in the first place, but I'd rather do that now while they're kind of up and about and not quite in full brumation than later on in the year when the video is going to get very little views because most of the video audience is going to be in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is summertime for them and this is our winter. So I do other stuff besides frog hotels and that kind of thing, which was kind of popularized by my very first video. The videography side of things is the business side, and that's where I try to get the drone up in the air and get the word out, basically to kind of promote the business a little bit more. So the drone transition shots that I've got are from the Northern Rivers, like where I live. So while I want to be responsible for how things have turned out, really the schedule of making these, what I can't really be held responsible for is the weather, and the past 6 months at least have been just rain upon rain. While a good portion of the build hasn't been outside, the parts that have to be shot outside had to get postponed. So quite a lot of it depends on the conditions to be done right in the first place. So the concrete outside, as I showed you earlier, it was a complete mess. So it took about 2 days worth of cleaning just to get the concrete back to a normal type of surface. But before it was looking almost black because of all the rain. It's really ironic because you've got one thing that comes from the sky, that is the water that falls into the tanks, which is the storage for what we need to clean it off after the rain has already done the damage to the concrete. Yeah, it's just a weird circle that you have to kind of chase. It just doesn't end. Okay, so future content releases. The Bin Hotel will be getting another visit. It's not up to scratch. It's a little bit less stable than what I thought it was going to be. Because of the sand. I wasn't expecting the sand to be that inconsistent. If you're hosing the water into the hotels and if you're not hitting the stones, you are going to hit the sand, which muddies up the water and makes everything a little less consistent. Yeah, it becomes very unstable. So just before we finish up, guys, a little bit of housekeeping. So what I've done is to make a website, that is bfvmedia.com.au. As of this moment, it is going through a bit of a transition phase. The website isn't actually doing anything. It's getting moved from one provider to another. It contains all the stuff that I've been doing, like stuff going overseas to the US and Canada, some stuff about Australian wildlife, stuff that happens in the sky, storms, the whole lot. Stuff that I'm interested in, really. And it's designed to be a portfolio website. Have a read through that. Good value stuff. I think it is anyway. About half an hour's read, that's all of this. There was a guy that got in contact with me a little while ago about the frog hotels and how it all got off the ground. He was from Yahoo News, and there was an article that he made basically with my permission to say here's the frog hotels and what they do and why the frogs come and visit and all that kind of thing, etc, etc. It's worth a read, so that's on the links in the description. I've kind of resorted to shooting here right now with my new light setup and everything, so instead of just holding the vlog style camera. So that's about it, guys. I appreciate if you've watched all of both those videos. So I know it's a little bit much to actually absorb and see where I've come from and everything, but that's what happens when you try to feel your way through a build and you don't exactly know what you're going to be coming up with. I'm glad it came out the way it did, and I just hope that the frogs will appreciate it for what it is, like the designs of the frog hotel that came before it. So that's about it, guys. All right, have a good one, and this has been the Big Fella. I'll catch you later, guys. Thanks for watching.